Good day and welcome to a new video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Hello and welcome today. Today you're joined by me and also we've got Jonathan.
Hi, hello.
Caridia.
hmm
Yeah, you're from New Zealand, I believe.
yeah, but basically,
Awesome, same here. Um, yeah, tell me a bit about yourself.
um, well, I said basically because I grew up in Europe, but I came over here when I was 12.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I did graphic design in college. That was pretty fun, and I've sort of been doing freelancing since then.
Hmm.
Uh, Sort of, yeah, did like graphic design and illustration for a while, but more the graphic design stuff, and now I'm sort of trying to move more towards illustration.
Awesome.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
aiming I think towards like yeah, video game kind of stuff because that's what I like.
oh, cool. Awesome. So, what part of Europe did you come from?
Um, so it's well the Lanzarote, which is in the Canary Islands, which is owned by Spain.
Oh yeah, awesome. Cool. Quite a fair distance, is it?
A little way, yeah. Yeah, pretty far.
Awesome.
Couldn't tell you exactly how far, but yeah, about half the globe. So
Cool. And now, whereabouts in New Zealand did you live? Or do you live?
yeah, I grew up the rest of the way in Tauranga, and then went to Waikato for uni. So that's in Hamilton, and now I'm back in Tauranga again. So
Awesome. Did you go to
yeah,
the Waikato? Is it the university there? I can't...
yeah. I went to Waikato University in Hamilton,
Yeah.
um, and then came back again because they do have a campus over here. But yeah,
Awesome. Well, that sounds interesting. I think there was an animation school, I believe, there in Waikato. I believe. They had
um,
an animation program or something like that. Because I remember when I was like 13 or 14, I was getting real into kind of animation, and that came up as a option, Waikato kind of um, that kind of
okay,
university animation. Um,
interesting. I didn't know that.
I think. Don't quote me on this, but it's something that popped up in a lot of advertising on TV and things like that, and
Oh, really?
um, which was interesting to see.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't really interact a whole lot with different sections of the university, so it could have been there and I just didn't know.
hmm,
Um, like the graphic design thing sort of only had the media studies people, which were doing similar sort of paper, and the uh, computer tech, what do you call that?
technology. We used to call it, I think, DIT.
Okay, but yeah,
um,
the programming people.
Digital information technology.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, that's kind of what we called it. That's what we called it at school anyway.
hmm
It was a bit of a dip there, but um,
Right.
mostly in my, at school, we would, you know, be on our computers, would have to, you know, play around with Word and um, Excel, and
Hmm
we'll get like credits for doing that, for making writing up a document,
Yeah.
and then
Tell
like,
you what, you don't really appreciate it at the time, but it is super useful to learn
mm,
because if you don't learn it there, you just walk in at some point, be like, wait, what are all these squares? I put numbers in here, and then what happens?
mm, yeah,
Yeah, Excel's actually super useful to learn just as like a life skill.
mm. It was kind of, in a way, like a little too easy. I mean, there was kind of the tedious parts where it was, getting the kind of text in the right place and trying to set up the text and doing all
Okay,
that stuff. Where it was tedious, and trying to get the borders right and playing around with
yeah,
that.
I guess it's the difference between like having a like a productive goal versus make the page look like this because then we know you did it right.
Yeah, yeah. It was interesting though, just sitting there, and I would always like do something else, and then the last minute, do the actual project. Like,
Wow.
I think at school I created a few things. Like I created um this club where we were trying to make comic books.
Hmm.
I was really interested in like creating this new Stickman figure comic book. Um, literally Stickman doing things,
Right.
and also some cats and dog kind of stuff, and very interesting things. Just getting people together to make stuff was interesting. Kind of
Yeah, I
at
think
our lunchtime.
that's the important part in the end.
Hmm. It was a
Just
lot of fun.
getting together to make whatever.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun, growing up doing that. Most of them fell through. I tried these things, um, and eventually, there would be like two or three of us left in the group. Um,
Yeah, I guess if you're not paying them, really the only thing keeping them going is passion, and
hmm,
people, yeah, unless it's something that they get really invested in, and tend to just fall off after the initial excitement wears away. But
hmm,
yeah, I remember I was involved with a couple of game projects that sort of went the same way. Like everyone got really excited and did a bunch of meetings about it, and we went through did brainstorming sessions, got all the design documents together and all that. But as soon as it started to get to like putting actual hours into programming everything, realizing how hard it was, it just sort of all went away.
interesting.
I do still have those like ideas and design documents floating around though. So
That's cool.
be useful for something eventually.
Yeah, awesome. Um, yeah. So yeah, we've just had the kind of pandemic here. Um, has that affected you in any way?
Honestly, not really. Like, because I do freelancing, I just work from home anyway. So yeah, I was already set up to do that. Like I've got my home office, and honestly, don't do a massive amount of outdoor related activities. So not too inconvenienced that way.
Oh, fair enough.
Um, yeah, the main thing is just well, it's affected everyone else, which means the work is a little bit scarcer,
Hmm.
especially on like the design side for a while. It was kind of I was looking at transitioning, like doing more illustration and concept design and that sort of thing at the start of the year anyway. And then yeah, I was putting together a portfolio and stuff, so it was kind of hard to tell what was due to coronavirus and what's due to me like starting something new.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
But
What?
yeah, it's as far as my day to day, it hasn't really didn't really change much at all.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, yeah, you wouldn't know if you starting in a new kind of field. Um,
Mm.
you wouldn't really know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know. Is this normal? Because I don't really have anything to measure it against.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, it's been interesting. Um, I mean, here in New Zealand, it's been alright. I guess there
Yeah,
are.
I'm
Yeah.
super lucky to be here. I think compared to what you see overseas, and even now, it's starting to ramp up again in Europe.
Yeah.
Um, my brother was actually here uh, during the pandemic, but he used to work over in Europe, doing boat stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, they were between contracts. So he and his girlfriend came over here for a holiday. It was supposed to be like you know, until like March, and they stayed here until June because they got caught in the lockdown. But
Hmm.
then they got on the first plane out of here. So they're in Denmark at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and they're saying yeah, it's starting to get a bit bad again.
Mm, yeah.
So yeah, super lucky to have been here, I think.
Yeah. That's what's good. You just gotta look at kind of the positive side of it. Um, sometimes.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people who don't feel particularly lucky, but I mean, yeah, it could be a lot worse.
Hmm. Yeah, awesome. Um, yeah. So, did you actually go to an arts college?
Not really. No. So I've never been taught. Oh, I guess that's not entirely true. The graphic design course did have like a lot of art related
Hmm.
things. So we did color theory, we did composition, we did uh like an intro to drawing class where we had to do a bit of life drawing and things like that.
Hmm.
So I have had some education from like I guess what do you call it, reputable place that's relevant. But yeah, it's I'd say it's mostly self-taught.
Awesome. Oh, so you went
It's
to a design um
Yeah, I
college.
did a design degree, so it was mostly that.
Awesome. Yeah, and other than that, it's self-taught. Like mostly your illustration stuff is self-taught.
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, a lot of YouTube tutorials, probably a lot more tutorial than like it's always the way you like watch a video like, wow, that's super interesting. I now know how to do that, but you don't really.
Hmm.
You just
Yeah.
sort of have more of an idea about it, but as soon as it comes down to sitting down and reproduce it, you're like, wait, hang on, what?
Hmm.
What were
Yeah.
they doing again?
Eh,
Okay, that's fine, but then how do I do it? Why is it not working for me? And
yeah.
then yeah, it's because usually you're missing some base level of fundamentals that they've all built up, and yeah, I think I'm starting to get there now
Hmm.
after so many years.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things, like they really understand it. They know what they're talking about, and they make it sound, so easy.
Hmm.
But when you go to do it, yeah, you just stutter, you just do it awfully wrong, or just make all these mistakes, something like that. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, you just got,
and
yeah.
you make a bunch of mistakes that you can't even see are mistakes until the
Mm.
end, and then you look at it, you're like, wait, why is their nose like 5 centimeters off that way?
Yeah, and you're so proud of it, and then yeah, someone sees it again, and they're like, oh, this is wrong. Um, but
Yeah.
sometimes there are some people that explain it in the right way.
Hmm.
Um, or it's one of those things that you listen to it over and over again, um, and then just one day it clicks, and you're like, oh my gosh, I actually understood that. What he was explaining.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, there have been quite a few, like, I guess you call them light bulb moments where you're like, oh, it's like that, and that's why this, and this happened. Um, like the most recent one for me was I was watching what was it? The Dorian Eaton video on Proco's channel about I guess realistic lighting, I think it was called.
yeah.
Um, and it was to do with the physics of why, like, okay, so say you have a sphere, and then you have a light on the sphere, and half of it's going to be dark and half of it's going to be light, right?
Hmm.
Um, it's about the amount of, like, the value range that you use in the light side and then in the dark side, where it doesn't, if you try and shade a sphere, your initial instinct is just going to go, okay, there's white and there's black, and you just go straight from one to the other. Um,
Hmm.
but if you're trying to do realistic lighting, there's like uh, a certain way that the light falls off until it gets to the point where it turns into dark, and then after that it's super dark. And that sort of made me realize, oh, so that's why when you're doing like oil painting or I don't know, just painting in general, I guess, they always harp on about like you have to separate your lights from your darks, and your lightest dark should be still darker than your darkest light, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yep.
Uh, so yeah, just like him going over that made me realize, oh, there's actually a physical reason for that. It's because of the how the way light, works.
Mm. Awesome.
I don't know if that all made sense, but yeah, just stuff like that's kind of cool when you find that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
if I didn't have all that base information of uh, the oil painting stuff, even though I haven't really done much of it, just it wouldn't have clicked as well, I think. So yeah, it's all accumulative.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, you're self-taught. Um. So how did you kind of approach that? Um. Like, how did you start off? Thinking about design. And illustration.
Uh, like, how do I start off thinking about a particular piece, or how do I think about like my self education, if that makes sense?
Yeah. How did you start self-educating yourself? Does that make sense?
Uh, Honestly, initially it was just for entertainment.
Hmm.
Like, um, I just sort of think it would be cool that Psychro or Cynics or modern day James or whatever could do these sort of things. I mean, I'd wonder, wow, I wonder how they're doing it. And so I'd sit down and I'd watch the magic trick, and they'd explain a bunch of stuff about how they're doing it. I'm like, oh wow, that's really interesting. Um, and then that sort of came through when I tried to do my own sort of stuff. Hmm.
Yeah.
And then I guess it didn't really change much, my approach. Like, um, I just sort of, yeah, I'd subscribe to people on YouTube and they put out content and it's often good. And it's just sort of being involved in the space, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I guess I don't really have a super set plan, even though I have had a look at making one.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Well,
there have
yeah.
been some things I've done that are like a little bit more structured,
Yeah.
but they were just like classes that I found out about through, one thing or another. Like I went to Chromacon, which is uh, for the listeners, or maybe you who don't know, is an independent arts festival in Auckland that's like biannual, so once every 2 years. Uh, and Bobby Chu was there,
Yeah.
and I was like, I hadn't heard of him before. I'm like, oh, who's this guy? He seems pretty cool. And I watched his talks and all that, and then I've found out about schoolism from there, and yeah, I did one of the courses on that, the Intro to Realism, and that's how I learned a lot of the oil painting stuff. Um, but yeah, it wasn't like I sat down one day. I'm like, you know what? I really want to learn how to do like what a realistic approach to painting would be, and I'm going to look for courses. It just sort
Hmm.
of came about, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It does make sense. Fair enough. Fair enough. I don't think everyone has a plan. Sometimes um, it's good not to, and just kind of feel things out and learn at your own pace and get your work done.
Yeah, that is one way of doing it. At the moment, though, like yeah, that's how I was at the start. But now I think I'm trying to get something a bit more specific, just
Hmm.
because like yeah, while it is nice and natural, it also takes quite a while. And now I'm trying to like that was fine when I was just doing design, and this was more like something I liked doing on the side or when I could get jobs. But if I'm trying to make this my main thing, I kind of want to make it a bit more focused. Uh, so at the moment, what I'm trying to do is um, Modern Day James started a pretty good challenge on his Discord where you just collect a bunch of artists that you like, and then do. I mean, it sounds really simple, but like Okay, yeah. The main point is to make the like curate it down to 15 or so images that are like um, really focused and targeted. So then when you go out and you make studies of them and try and figure out what you need to do to get your art to look that way. Um, like it's not like you have a abstract environment and then a realistic character and then a 3D thing. You're like you can't make your work look like all of those things at the same time. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Cool.
I have I have my curated set and I've got my study material. So yeah, I yeah bought some of I don't know if I'm saying this right. I heard someone say it differently recently, but Nurzan Bakaliev, he's I think Kazakhstani artist.
Okay.
He got a super recognizable style,
Yeah.
and I bought some of his stuff on Gumroad
Oh, cool.
just
Yeah.
just to go through and try and do studies of and see how he does things.
Mm.
They're very long, but I'm getting through them.
Yeah. Oh well, good things take time. And some of those
Hmm.
videos, they are quite long, but they are quite good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, if you're trying to see exactly how they do things, you can't just skip things and be like, oh well, I'm getting it's 3 hours long and I'm an hour and a half in. Well, how much like what else more could there be? But he's
Mm.
still got to finish it. Like
Yeah.
there's got to be something in there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's always good not to just see other people's work and maybe go over it. Um,
Hmm.
what we used to do at design school is take images, um, in graphic design images, or for me, I mostly chose illustrations because that was my big interest.
Hmm.
Um, so I would take these, illustrations, designs. Sometimes they were designs, and you'd break them down. So you'd break up why they um, work and what works with them, what's maybe negative about it. What maybe what some of the things that might clash with it.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, go over all these things, and there was like categories like uh, color, light, um, perspective, like positioning, and those things you'd have to talk about. Um, Quite a few things. It was really good to just do that. Um, and that's what we do in our design processes: get all these images, break them down, and then start coming up with ideas and bringing it into your work.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really the best way to do studies instead of just straight copying stuff because you're trying to learn things, not just be a photocopier. Um, although, yeah.
But yeah, it's great to just copy other people's work as well, just to see what they're thinking, why they've done it, and how they've kind of painted it as well.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I guess it's the difference between seeing what they did and seeing how they did it.
hmm,
And that what you said before is pretty relevant as well. It sort of demystifies the process a bit. Like in one of the in that video I'm watching of like him painting basically real time, like he changes his mind a bunch and goes over things and tries different blending modes and is like, no, that isn't working, and then goes back on things. So it's like
hmm,
you're sort of seeing the full process instead of it just being a linear thing. Like even because the person making it doesn't know what it's supposed to look like when they're in the process of making it, so they have
hmm,
to experiment and try things and you know do stuff the same as you would have to as well.
yeah,
It also gives an idea of the sort of time involved too.
yeah, and
Like,
it's. I think what I've learned lately is seeing a bit more people's process
mm-hmm,
um has been really helpful because before this year I went to Lightbox. Um, haven't been to an event like that before. I've been
Hmm.
to kind of Armageddon and some other kind of events like that, but um, nothing quite like Lightbox.
Yeah,
um,
it's a bit overwhelming, but yeah.
but for years I've just been kind of watching mainly, Bobby Chio's videos, a bit of other people's like Adam Duff, and
Hmm. Hmm.
I have in the past watched some of Proko's work, and um, but you know, been well, kind of staying up and watching all these videos from like a really wide range of artists and seeing
Hmm.
their process, um, how they paint things, and just sitting them watching them paint and draw things. It just opens you wide up. It's not just a few awesome artists that you really like. It's opening up to all that's out there. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it shows you that there's no like one way of doing things, I guess. And some people work really slow, and others work really fast, and they both get pretty good results in the end. And they both get good work, and they're both considered pro artists. So you know, some people use a bunch of other techniques, and some, like photo bashing or layer manipulation and blending modes and all that. And some people just like going in there with some texture brushes and doing it all themselves by hand. Um, yeah, it's just there's a lot of options out there.
Hmm. And some you're like amazed because there was this one guy sitting there. I think it was one of those streams. I think it was like the end of the day stream, and it was only
Hmm.
meant to go on for an hour or something. I I think something beer. It's on YouTube. Um, I can't remember his
Is
full
that bear the drink or bear the animal?
the animal.
Okay.
Beer illustration. Uh, but anyway, he's worked on like Ratchet and Clank games, and a lot of things like that, doing
Hmm.
creatures and um, space art and things like that.
Cool.
And seeing his process, he was sitting there for he did something in 3 hours,
Hmm.
and and the end result looked like something that would have taken me like 2 or 3 weeks to do, and I was just like, "What? Oh my
Yeah.
god!" Like, you just. I was like getting to the middle of the stream, being like, "Okay, he's not going to finish this piece. He's probably just going to have, a couple of colors here," and then by the end of it, it was like, "What? He's finished this whole piece in only like 3 hours, and it looks that good."
Yeah.
Um,
There's been some
and
other things where, like, I had it on in the background, and then I tabbed out doing something else for 15 minutes. I come back and like, wait, what happened?
yeah.
It suddenly looks like almost finished now. What the hell?
And it was this was actually real time, so it's like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
yeah,
3 hours work can
yeah. And it
achieve that.
seems like maybe that they're not doing as that much, like
Mm.
second by second. But then if you look away and then come back for a bit, yeah.
It's one of those, like, I think might I want to say James Gurney possibly,
Hmm.
um who he does a few oh, not James Gurney, he's a oil painter, and he just does like a few strokes and he's got an amazing painting.
Right.
But they've taken years to master it. um but yeah, just seeing their process, the way he works is that he's got line work, and then he's got simple color over top, um, and then from there it's all like layered, and he's got his own kind of system that works for him really well. And
Hmm.
you can see it's obviously taken years to get to that point of finding what works for you, what processes um, work the best and the fastest to achieve what you
Yeah.
need to.
And the other thing is that when you have that much experience, like you don't know what they're shortcutting, like what's going on in their mind that they're like, okay, I don't have to do that because I've done it a literal 1,000 times before. That maybe if you were just starting off, you would have to do.
Yeah,
Like Kim Jung Gi and his lack of any sort of construction ever
yeah, yeah.
does it.
Oh, I saw some of his stuff too, and I think the latest one he was on Proko's channel, and he was explaining, perspective, um, broken perspective,
Hmm.
and how that works. He was just drawing a kind of gun in perspective, a gun coming towards you, um, how that would look, and it was really cool to see that it was like that simple for him. Um, and yeah, I've got to really look into it to add it to one of my designs or my illustrations one day and
Mm.
see if it works.
Yeah, one of the things that I was listening to an interview with him one time, and he said that when he was drawing like a character with a hat or something,
Hmm.
um, and he started off with the hat, and he says everything that I do after this is going to go like in the same perspective as this. So the drawing itself are the guidelines.
Hmm.
So it's not that he doesn't use them; it's that he just uses the drawing itself as guides,
Hmm.
which is pretty cool, I think. If you yeah, you want to speed things up, you want to try the technique yourself, it's something really interesting to know.
Yeah, it's definitely something like I did that in kind of drawing school when I was at school doing
Hmm.
drawing. It was called CAD drawing,
Yeah.
um, technical drawing with all the lines. I really hated the lines. I just
Hmm.
really hated ruling and measuring all my lines and getting things like perfect. I just like to, you know,
Draw
freehand
stuff.
draw. I love
Yeah.
freehand drawing. I hated drawing lines and measuring everything out and making sure it's the right perspective. I just dislike it so much.
Mm.
Um, but that kind of worked in a way that kind of worked in my favor because I wanted to get to that point where I didn't have to use that perspective and the measuring, and all that stuff. So I really
Hmm.
pushed to try and get to that stage where I could draw freehand. Um, so yeah, that really pushed me to learn that stuff and really trying to get that stuff done.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I guess just learning the way things work to then be able to do it yourself, so you don't have to rely on them. Mm.
Awesome. So
Hmm.
you will learn the principles of design, um, I guess.
Pardon?
Would you have learned the principles of design?
Yeah, yeah, that was a big part of, well, as you'd hope, the design education.
Yep.
Um, yeah, it sort of makes things a lot simpler when you're trying to design like a nice looking logo instead of a nice looking character, because you don't have to worry about anatomy or I don't know, to, drawing a good looking armor set or a gun or whatever. You're just making shapes.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I think that was probably our longest project that we had to do, was going through and finding, I think, 30 examples each of uh, all these different design principles, and we were only allowed like a certain number from the internet.
Yep. Yep.
So you
Yeah.
had to
No.
go through like magazines or books in the library, or just go out and take photos and stuff.
It's fun to do that. I did that, and it's interesting, like, you know, presenting to each other. Because in my course, we had to present to each other.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just seeing everyone else's results. What um they found compared to what
Yeah,
you found.
yeah. You're like,
And
oh man, I didn't think of that one. Yeah,
I think someone taking photos of just signs they saw out on the road and these funny
yeah.
little things that you're like, oh, really?
Graphic design in the wild.
Yeah, it's best.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, it's interesting that you see that. Um, and then you start noticing it everywhere.
Yeah. You're broken your mind. You can't turn it off.
um,
You see poor kerning somewhere, you notice it immediately.
yeah,
Hmm. But yeah, I think all that stuff is super, super helpful for illustration work as well.
exactly. I mean, it depends on what kind of illustration, um, for what how much you use of it.
Mm.
Um, for instance, like I'm doing children's books at the moment, so I
Hmm.
have to use type. So eventually I have to use type, and also I have to think about positioning the text with the image as well.
Yeah.
So that's something I have to deal with. So I need to know, a little bit of typography, a little bit of kind of positioning with text and image.
And
Um,
layout and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, layout and stuff. Um, which is something I wasn't exactly the strongest in at course in design.
Mm.
Um, but I know it, so it can be really helpful. Um, and there's other things that are really helpful there too. Size, making sure things are the right size, the characters are the right size compared to you know, the background, and you know, how big the
Hmm.
text is, and um,
Yeah, I guess I was trying to look more into concept design, and that's like a little bit closer, especially process wise.
hmm,
Because you're doing your design process with graphic design. You're making a bunch of um, you're making a bunch of iterations. You're going back to the client and being like, hey, what do you think of these? And they're like, yes or no. And then you go back and make changes instead of it just being like, I made a nice picture. Please buy it on a shirt or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think that was and or will be helpful.
hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's what concept art. Um, as they say, there's like pretty picture that yeah, it's about people say a lot about it is creating something magnificent. But
Hmm.
in the end, even some concepts are concepts. They are just to show the producer um, what it could look like.
Yeah.
So there's a
Yeah.
whole range of levels that where it could be. It could be really realistic, polished to nothing's business, but most of the most concepts are concepts. They are
Yeah.
not
Just ideas.
fully polished. Yeah.
They were fully Imagine if they had to render out like 30 people in like a month or something.
Yeah. Um, it was like I've done something like that before. Art station challenges
Oh
where
yeah.
you had to design like 10 characters or something
Hmm.
in I think it was less than a month. So it that was really challenging, like doing all 10. Um,
That's why they called it a challenge. Hey.
but yeah, I did have that because it was a concept kind of art thing.
Mm.
Did have that challenge in I wanted to kind of get them all polished, kind of a thing. Um,
Mm.
where it's a concept. I said trying to get that you know um understood, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you want enough information to get the idea across, and that's it. Because if you're doing anything more, then you're wasting time. But you also don't want to leave things vague, because then when you pass them on to the modeler or whatever, they're like, or showing it to the art director or whoever it is, you're like, wait, what's this kind of scribbly bit over here? You're like, oh, that's his belt.
Hmm.
The
Did
fact that I couldn't tell that, maybe you should have finished that.
hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it's been great doing
Finding
that. I
that good
think
medium point. Hmm.
also if I could do it again, I would probably spend more time kind of concepting in a way,
Yeah.
because I think I spent the first week kind of just concepting, and then the rest was kind of polishing off or
Mm.
trying to get things looking really good. Where um yeah, it was just rendering basically. So I
Yeah.
was rendering kind of not the best concepts in the world, um,
Yeah.
where I could
It's
have.
funny. Yeah, I actually had the opposite problem. I was doing like think that yeah, that's right. My entry for the Unreal Bjornament, which is challenge the Bjorn Hurry runs each year.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I spent like the first. It was we had like a week to do the first thing. I'm pretty sure, and I spent like the first uh 5 days concepting and thinking of like an interesting idea and that, and then I only had 2 days to do it,
Hmm.
and did not turn out as well as I would have liked. Uh, yeah, so gotta still leave you enough time to do whatever you think of, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a
I
there's a balance sometimes. You know, the whole concepting thing and then kind of rendering, um,
mm,
and getting it good. Um, but yeah, it's for me. It's definitely important to get the general idea across. Um, of what the character's trying to say, what the story's trying to say, just trying to get that across
mm,
the best you can for me, and that's been challenging, and it's something I'm still working on. I'm still trying to improve on. Um, I guess it's my ultimate goal is to try and get that across in each drawing and illustration that I do. Is trying to make sure that the story really shows.
hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's super important because if you have a good, you can tell a good story with with stickmen to bring it back around. And people will connect with it, like the XKCD or the Cyanide and Happiness comics. They're
hmm,
very, very low fidelity, I guess you'd say, but they're super popular because they have good writing. Good, I wouldn't say story, but they good. I don't know. I guess it is kind of story, but not a long form story.
hmm.
So yeah, there's yeah. If you get really good at that, definitely a good thing for children's book illustration for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, so
Or
I'm
just
gonna
yeah, any sort of artwork, I guess.
go ask one last question.
Hmm.
Have you ever met someone that taught you an important lesson, um, or impacted your life, and what did they teach you?
Hmm. Um, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not great at of coming up with like. I guess I haven't really had like a proper mentor figure, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, there's been people who have contributed to my education, I guess, from afar in a sort of like the online videos and that. But as
Hmm.
far as I'd have to, yeah, do
Really
a
think
proper
about
think to
it.
there be someone like, oh yeah, that person said that to me, and that was super inspiring in
Hmm.
in person.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess just meeting some of those people was pretty cool when they came to ChromaCon. Like
Hmm.
um, Bobby Chu and some of the international artists, like Joel Cooper was there, uh, and just seeing that they're like just regular people.
Hmm.
And I don't remember anything they said specifically, but it was just like, oh yeah, this is these are just um, regular people who have uh, a good a high level skill, and you know you can talk to them, but you can also get that skill yourself if you work hard enough. So it's possible. It's not just far away.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome just meeting people in the industry, um, and those kind of things. Yeah.
Hmm.
Awesome. So yeah, thanks for coming in and coming into this chat. It's great
Yeah, no
having
problem.
you.
It was fun.
Um,
Thank you.
Thanks for anyone that did watch this. Yeah, whether it was on the stream or if it was on the YouTube channel. Um, Links in the description for your website, for your Instagram. We have up there at Instagram.com, Jonathan Caridia. Is that how you say it?
Caridia.
Caridia.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um, yeah, to check out his work. You know, he's done some figure studies and some interesting drawings and stuff. You also, we didn't get a chat about this, but you also have a YouTube channel as well.
I
Um,
do, yes. I post stuff up irregularly, but when I think of something interesting that I want to talk about, then yep, I often post uh post it. Well, I wouldn't say often. I sometimes post a video about it. Yeah, it's usually stuff that I think that would be useful to artists that maybe isn't being put out there as much.
awesome.
So like process mental health stuff, business things. Um, but I do like I noticed the other day that I don't actually have much or yeah much actual art on there. I've just got my figure stuff, my figure drawing. Um, so I've been recording like time lapse footage of some of my. I'm not doing Inktober, but I'm doing a slightly different daily challenge. Not doing so well on the daily stuff, but there's been some things. There's been
Yep,
some things
yep,
happening, and I've got footage for it. So
fair
that'll be up uh, soon ish
enough.
at
Soonish.
some point.
Awesome.
Hopefully before it becomes irrelevant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, that will be in the description too. Um, Thanks everyone for coming in. Keep drawing everyone and see you in the next video. Goodbye.
See you.